It's the season of strikes. Labour strikes in Britain, pension strikes in France, and women on strike in South Korea. In fact, they've been striking for a few years now. Against what? Marriage and childbirth. Women in South Korea are shunning both. The latest fertility data is ringing alarm bells in Seoul. The population is shrinking, and all the money and policy solutions are not changing the tide. Women in South Korea remain on strike. They say they're protesting because the society views them as baby-making machines. It's become a movement of sorts, a movement called the 4 no's. What are the 4 no's? No to dating, no to sex, no to marriage, and no to childbearing. That's what the women of South Korea say. Look at the survey from 2022. It shows 65% of Korean women do not want children. The question is why, and the reasons are many, starting with money. The cost of raising children is high. In fact, South Korea is said to be the most expensive country to raise a child. Plus, housing is unaffordable. There are long working hours and bleak job prospects. So finances play a big role, but there's also a major cultural factor. And society's impossible expectations from a mother. She's expected to do it all. And this, by the way, is not limited to South Korea. Across the world, so many women have had enough and they're opting out. Not from their jobs, but from motherhood. They say it's a personal choice, and it is. But it also has widespread public ramifications. South Korea has the world's lowest fertility rate. In 2022, it broke its own record. What's the country's fertility rate? The average number of children a woman will have in her lifetime. For South Korea, it was 0.8 in 2021. The year before, it was 0.84. What does this mean? It means one woman would not even have one child on an average. How does that compare with other countries? Look at Japan. In 2021, its fertility rate was 1.3, and Japan too has a shrinking population. In the US, it was 1.6. Do you know what's the highest? 7. One woman would have 7 children on an average. That's in Niger. What's the ideal rate? 2.1. To maintain a stable population, a country needs a fertility rate of 2.1. Any figure above that indicates population growth. South Korea's birth rate has been dropping since 2015. In 2020, it recorded more deaths than births for the first time. This is called a population death cross. And the fallout can be serious. Schools are facing a shortage of students. The military is relaxing rules for enrollment. The workforce is shrinking, and the pension of retirees is at risk. Experts say South Korea needs urgent course correction, else it would face a major labor shortage within a decade. So what is Seoul doing? They're spawning robots. South Korea is developing robots and artificial intelligence for the workforce. It is also throwing money at the problem. Seoul has spent over $200 billion in the last 16 years to boost its population, but it seems it still cannot convince its women to procreate. Neighboring Japan is battling a similar crisis, a declining birth rate and a rapidly aging population. Its Ministry of Health says it recorded less than 800,000 births in 2022, the lowest in more than 100 years, the first since 1899. Japan also has one of the highest life expectancies in the world. Nearly 1 in 1,500 people is over the age of 100. What about China? In 2022, China's population shrank for the first time in 60 years, and Beijing has no one to blame but itself. It is the second most expensive place to raise a child after South Korea. It has also had some draconian policies. For decades, China limited families to a single child. It was meant to control the population, but it's now proving to be counterproductive. Which brings us to the most populous country in the world now, India. How are we faring? Not bad at all. Why? Because 50% of our population is under the age of 30. It is also the world's fastest growing major economy. India's challenge is to harness this demographic dividend, to turn this young population into a growth engine, to provide the right skills and create enough jobs. With the right policy push, India can turn into the biggest talent hub in the world.